getting on, folks? Luke here from LAGFX. We're back today with another Sunday Sessions video. If you're new to this series, it is where me and James go through the markets. We look at a few pairs that we feel hold good potential for placing profitable positions in the coming week, and we highlight some zones and specific areas that you guys can look out for and apply to your own charts. If you do go on to enjoy this video, be sure to leave it a thumbs up. All the support you guys provide is very much appreciated. If you have any questions or queries regarding the analysis that we performed today, please leave them in the comments below and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Now, without further ado, let's jump straight into today's Sunday Sessions video. So you'll see on screen here, we have the Great British Pound to the US dollar market. This is a pair that I myself have been trading very much. As of recently, you'll see that we have placed multiple positions, both buying and selling into this market, and we have basically just taken full advantage of the swings that this market's put in, both the corrective waves as well as the impulsive waves. So you'll see that this market is clearly trading us in a bearish manner. This is the overall structure of the market. As you can see, we have the production of lower highs and lower lows, and we are wanting to see this continue throughout. Now, if we just go more to present time, you will see how price has not quite tapped into the supply zone that I've got highlighted, but has cleared all of remaining inefficient structure that was laying below this. What I am wanting to see, if we just go down on time frames, is for price to put in this correction fractally, which it is doing at the moment, trade us into a demand zone, which we could say could be here. There's a clear last sell to buy region here. As you can see, this candle, this red candle left on its own, would be considered a last sell to buy region. So I would like to see price slowly trade us into this for more demand to be introduced, and that to encourage price to take us up and into the higher time frame supply zone that I have highlighted here. From there, I would be expecting price to go on to reverse, creating its next higher time frame impulsive wave. So with that being said, if you would all like to highlight this zone out for yourself as a place to potentially buy from, then by all means do so. I'll highlight it out for you guys now. So as you can see, I've highlighted this zone out for you all, so you've got an area to potentially buy into this market. All we would want to see is for price to actually penetrate this zone, deliver us with some kind of break of structure to the upside, fractally, as this would confirm the end of this correction, this fractal correction, and the start of the next leg taking us higher. And then obviously we can look for the pullback to allow for a refined entry, and then we can enter in on this market. What I'll also do is highlight this zone up here, this supply zone, where we'll be looking to sell as a longer term position for you all now, so bear with me. Okay, so as you can see, I've highlighted this zone out for you all as well. I've not put it in the box just because it might not show, so I've just highlighted above so you can see exactly where we are looking to potentially sell from in this market. So because we have our overall bias, which is to sell into this market, we understand that we want to be sellers longer term, but there is no harm in looking for buy positions before we sell into the market, hence why I provided you with this demand zone. So as I say, mark out these zones for yourself, apply them to your own charts, wait for the right confirmation in order to enter, and then execute your positions. Moving over to the XAU USD market, again, this is another market that has been trading us bearish as of recent. If I just zoom out, you'll see that we have the production of clear bearish structure. So we have lower highs and lower lows being created. We have just seen price, as of recently, tap into a higher time frame supply zone. This in itself has shown great signs of price going on to create that next leg, taking us lower. So you can see that we have a high set, a low set, a lower high, a lower low. We now have a lower high being set here. So we can expect price to come and break beneath this previous structural low at 16.16. So again, if we are looking to get involved in this market, what we would have needed is for price to penetrate this zone, which it has done, give us good and clear confirmation that price has, the supply and demand balance has flipped and price is trading us lower now. We've had that. We've had a break of structure to the downside. If we just go down to the 4-hour time frames, you'll be able to see a little bit more clearly. We would say that this was the last structural low within this bullish correction. Price has broken beneath that by breaking here, and price has continued trading us lower. Now that we have seen this initial impulsive wave on the lower time frames finish, and we have confirmation of it finishing by a break of structure to the upside, that is when we can start to look for supply zones within the initial impulsive wave where we can look to sell from longer term in this market. So we had the initial break of structure, price came back to pull back into a demand zone where we then placed our buy positions. So we are actually in on buys on this market so far at the moment. Now all we want to do is trade price into one of two supply zones where we'll then sell. So if you haven't done, pause the video, mark these two areas out as potential sell zones, as I will be looking to sell from one of two areas dependent on where we are delivered with the confirmation we need in order to execute. And if you aren't involved in buy positions, then what we could do is we could look at this initial impulsive wave that has traded us higher into this and heading into this zone for any unmitigated last sell to buy region. So I have found one here. So I'll go ahead and highlight this out for you all now. This candle here has been left unmitigated, and as we can see, it represents, it's around 1831 and 1837. So if I just highlight this out for you all now, we can expect that the demand in the market will slow and probably pull back and need to grab more. So we can expect price to trade us lower before taking us right up into this higher time frame supply zone. So we can expect price to come down, tap into this, and then take us all the way through up and into this supply zone where then we can look to sell. So this is giving you guys an opportunity to buy into the market from here, and then we can close those buy positions around here in this supply zone around the 1909 area where we can then look to sell as a longer term bias. So again, if you haven't done, pause the video, highlight this zone out for yourself. This is on the 30-minute time frames, as this will be a perfect opportunity to buy into this market this coming week. Okay, now moving over to the Euro USD, we have seen price tap into this demand zone. Price has shown great signs of bullishness. We've had a break of structure multiple times to the upside. That tells us that price is now reliant on the demand levels, and we can expect price to continue trading us higher. All we need to do is look for an opportunity to actually buy into this market before we go on to sell. There are patterns within all of these markets, and this is because of the quote currency. You'll notice that every quote currency in these pairs that I've gone through so far is the US dollar, so they will kind of correlate in some way or another just down to that. So you'll see here that we have a last sell to buy candle. Again, we could mark this out as a potential area to buy from, assuming we are delivered with the right confirmation to enter. So we can expect price to trail us into this. We're already seeing price trade us bearish, so I'm expecting price to pull back into some kind of demand zone in order to push price higher. So I'll mark this zone out for you guys now. From here, we'll be wanting to see price trade into this, break structure to the upside. That would confirm the end of the correction or the pullback, whatever you want to call it. And then from there, we would then look for a fractal pullback into another fractal demand zone where we can then look to execute our positions. By doing this and waiting for further confirmation, we are allowing ourselves to get involved with more of a refined entry. And in doing so, that gives us greater risk to reward returns. From there, we can look to buy into the market, trade price right up into this supply zone, where then we can close those buy positions and then look to sell, again, assuming we are delivered with the right confirmation in order to do so. So if you guys haven't done already, pause the video again, mark out these supply and demand zones as areas to potentially buy and sell from. Finally, the last market I'm going to go through today is the Great British Pound to the Japanese Yen. We can see that price is very much within a corrective phase. On the, looking at this as a higher time frame scope of things, we can see that price has put in a bearish leg. Price is now correcting itself. There has been a last buy to sell region here, and I'm wanting to see price trade us right up into this, clear anything that needs to be cleared from the supply zone, and then in order for price to trade us lower. We can see that price came to sweep anything beneath, but I'm really wanting to see price dig into this before taking us lower into the market. So again, this week, I am expecting price to put in or continue putting in this correction. Once price has penetrated the zone, we can look to sell. I probably won't look to buy into this market before I sell, just because we are relatively close to the supply zone. So realistically, it would be slightly, it would be pretty risky to buy into a market when it's probably preparing to go bearish as a longer term thing. And as always, we want to be trading with the prevailing trend anyways. So just to be safe, I will be holding off from buying into this market before I sell, but I will be just keeping an eye out, setting alerts, and waiting for the right confirmation in order to enter. Highlight this supply zone out for yourself, pause the video, highlight this supply zone out, have it as an area that we can look to potentially sell from, wait for price to penetrate this zone. We then need a break of structure to the downside, as this would confirm the end of this higher time frame correction. Once we have that, we can then wait for a pullback into a fractal supply zone that will present itself to us from the initial impulsive wave that broke structure to the downside, and then we can get involved in that fractal supply zone. Again, as I mentioned before, it allows us to get involved with a refined entry and an increased RR. Now that is going to summarize my segment of this Sunday sessions video. I hope you guys have enjoyed. I hope I have given you enough zones and areas to look out for. There are plenty of trading opportunities we can look to be a part of in this coming week. So if you haven't done, make sure you mark out all of the supply and demand zones that I've given you all, and ensure that you are delivered with the right confirmation in order to execute before you go ahead and place those positions. What I'm going to do now is pass you over to James, and he is going to run through some of the pairs that he is looking at trading this coming week.
Hey everybody, hope we're all doing well. Probably a bit of a weird scenario here. I'm sure a lot of you haven't heard from me in a couple of weeks. I've pretty much just been very much focused on this. I guess what we explained last time in the trading couch video was more of like a course or opportunity that I have taken in order to develop my sales, marketing, recruitment, business skills. So the idea being that that's going to be the next focus of mine for, I guess, the next 5-6 months. Obviously, everything to do with Forex is still a huge part of my life, and I will still definitely be providing content when I can, still making YouTube videos, still providing analysis. So I'm not just going to ghost or walk off the face of the planet. However, just expect things to be on a little bit of a back burner from me. Now today, what I've wanted to do really, because I'm not in the loop as much with the markets as I would like to be, I'm instead, rather than going through like a quick bit of analysis on each, I'm just going to take this as an opportunity for me to redo my top-down analysis on the Australian dollar, US dollar. So the idea being, I just want to get a good gauge of what's going on in this market. And then we'll hopefully be able to develop some opportunities from inside of this that we can all keep our eyes on in the coming weeks. So first things first, obviously, I'll streamline the first bit, but starting on the 3-month impulse correction, we're getting ready for that next impulse down. You know that this is an overall buy to sell, which is perfect as a point of interest supply. So we've had that initial impulse down. If we wanted to identify that, then obviously that is how it would be done. Impulsive wave. We've had that correction trade back up to tap into here, and we're now taking off lower. So let's see inside of this. We know that our final target or our expectation is for price to come and exceed this level, which is perfect. Yeah. So final target. We're going to expect price to tap that. Then we can quite visibly see that within this move lower, there is going to be some supply zones left over from that move lower. So this being one of them. Okay, we can identify that. Another one I'm seeing right off the bat is probably going to be this inside of here. Perfect. And then we can obviously see where price is as of right now. So obviously we know for a fact that price is definitely reversing from this zone and getting ready to develop or create that next impulse lower. Why? Well, not only because we've tapped and reversed from a point of interest, but also because we've recently come to break major structure. So the break of this low, obviously if we look inside of this, we've had impulse, correction, impulse. The break of that low is going to signify a break of structure to the downside. Now, obviously before that, we did have some displacements or changes of characters, should we say, sorry, of these lows where we had the early signification that price was looking to go lower. Obviously that is backed by the fact that as we've delivered those change of characters, we've also been continually reacting from supply. So obviously we've had signs for a long time that this market was bearish. that we were reversing going lower, but we've actually got a lot of higher time frame confirmation coming into it. Now, whether or not price decides to exceed the final target now or in the future is obviously the thing we need to establish, because price could quite easily deliver a correctional wave back up into one of these zones before reversing and making that move. But we're not actually going to assume that's the case until we come to start breaking some of these highs. So the main thing for me would be to see the penetration of this high or the liquidation of it, which would be a change of character to the upside, which would then be significant to me that price is getting ready to make that correction higher. Now, what is going to be quite relevant is that, yes, we do actually have a sell to buy area right here. The price is potentially tapped into, okay? Now, we see that after it tapped into this, we've actually made a move higher again, where we've come to slightly penetrate this previous high. Now, whether this is going to be the start of new bullishness or just a continuation of bearishness is something we need to actually determine. So if we look inside of here, the one thing I want to do very quickly is try to identify inside of this region if there's any points of interest that may need to be mitigated. Now, let's just use a higher time frame there, because there's nothing obvious as we go lower. And we can just say something within this sell to buy, that's going to act as a demand zone. Now, why have I actually identified this and drawn this out? Well, because it's going to be quite relevant to me because of a couple different things. Firstly, if price wants to continue bearish, it's going to blow through this zone and we're going to continue lower, which is great. Now, if on the flip side that we have actually introduced a fair bit of demand and we actually want to continue trading higher, we know that price will actually want to come and trade down to that demand zone that we have just identified, right? So that is why it's been identified, because we may very well see price trade down into it, see the reversal, see that the mitigation of this order alone introduces a lot of demand, then we'll see price curve back up and continue in a bullish fashion. So when we're in periods like this, this is when I'm identifying both demand and supply zones until I have clear confirmation that one side of the market is in control. So we'll leave this here. We'll add an alert to that. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go a bit lower into what price is doing right now. And if we look inside of this, very clearly we've got this as an impulse lower. Now, as we look into it, price already come back in to tap and mitigate that. We've then moved higher. We've then left an unmitigated order up here. Okay, so a supply zone. Yep, if we identify that. We also know that there's very likely going to be a zone somewhere inside of here also. We can even go to the lower time frame just to double check that. Yeah, I very much like the idea of this being a zone. Buy to sell, no price action comes back to that. We've tapped back into there. We've tapped back into, yeah, brilliant, brilliant. And then the only thing left is that one there, which we've got as the exact buy to sell. Point being, we've now got some supply zones identified also, which I will add some alerts onto. So it just gives us a good state where we are actually prepared for either thing to happen, pretty much. Because what's going to happen is we may react from these supply zones and see a reversal. And if that is the case, by all means, we're going to get involved in sell positions. But once we're loaded in on those sell positions, we're going to have to be quite cautious to see what price does as it approaches this demand zone. Because price may either hit this and supply gets exhausted, or we hit this and fall through. So this is where it would come to holding that position longer term and managing it accordingly as price starts to approach this region. Now, of course, if we see price reacting to these supply zones, we come lower, we see more continual supply zone reactions. Again, we'll just assume that. But I've made sure to be prepared by identifying both supply and demand zones, so I'm aware of what could happen on both sides of the market. Now, actually, to sort of hammer a bit further into that, we see price already mitigate that. Go higher, go higher. There is still a couple unmitigated positions in this market, which we may potentially see price come to mitigate in the future. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure they're all identified, just so that as price approaches them, I'm aware of their presence, and I am aware of the potential contribution they may have to the supply and demand balance at the time of the tap. So this is pretty much going to be the final bit of analysis that I've come to. As of right now, we're seeing that price longer term is bearish, okay? Reacted to a supply zone, we started making moves lower. Now, yes, we've left over these two unmitigated positions, but I can't assume price will come back up to them just yet unless we liquidate this high. Now, looking inside of this, okay, we've clearly had bearishness forming. We see that recently we've potentially tapped a sell to buy candle where we've seen a very valid reversal, a big move higher where we've come to liquidate a high. So we need to be aware of the fact that price may be going bullish from here. Hence why I have identified this demand zone. Because if price does want to continue bullish, we're likely going to see the tap into this zone here. Now, in the short term, for price to even get down to this zone, we still need to be reacting from supply in order for us to trade that low. So we've identified these supply zones to see if price reacts from these, reverses from them. If so, we can look to edge in on sells. If that's the case, we'll hold those sells down to this zone where we'll then look to manage the position accordingly, regardless or regarding whether price either reverses from this or falls through. Okay, so that's pretty much what we're looking at. I'm just looking at this demand zone just to try and identify exactly how I want to identify it. Because on the higher time frame, I really want to identify it as this entire region, but then the lower time frame, we can very much look at it like that. I'm going to actually identify this entire region just so that I'm fully aware of what's going on there. Okay. So yeah, that is the overall bias. We're originally looking to sell down into the market, watching price at this demand zone to see if we have longer term buys. If not, and we fall through, we're then just expecting price to continue bearish all the way until we penetrate this low and exceed the final target. So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions about that analysis whatsoever, obviously make sure to give me a message, leave a comment, speak to anyone in the team. But most importantly, thank you everybody for watching this. Hopefully you can take some information away and actually implement that into your own trading, your own analysis. I think it's always good to see what other people do, just to see what other techniques work, whilst also just networking with other individuals. So if you have enjoyed, leave some feedback. Likes and comments go a long way for us. And overall, we'll see you next Sunday in the next Sunday sessions.